That's it. We are never doing rivalry weekend ever again.
Nope.
We are sticking with the first 11 games. We don't need rivalry weekend anymore. Welcome back to another episode of the Walk on Red Shirts podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Rate us 5 stars. Maybe you're a 4-star listener, like William likes to say. But with that being said, rivalry weekend happened. You and I both had terrible weekends. At least your team wasn't a 3-touchdown favorite and took a fat L.
Jake, I don't care how big the differential is supposed to be. I do not care. All I want to do is win. I had to watch this game with a South Carolina fan. Shout out to Beans. And then Victoria. The 2 fans. So I couldn't even enjoy the good times because I didn't want to be obnoxious. But that one hurt. And then I had to get in the car and drive to a Christmas tree farm to go pick up my tree, try to be jolly for the family after just watching us get our teeth kicked in the freaking fourth quarter because our defense coordinator doesn't know how to keep their best freaking player on the football field. But I got to the tree farm, Jake. I checked my phone. It said Miami 21, Syracuse 0 or 7. I forget what it was when I got there.
It looked like a blowout at start.
And I was like, well, you know what? At least I can be at peace knowing that we're going to the Pop-Tarts Bowl to play Kansas State. But football Santa showed up a little early. He knew we were being jolly. He showed up. Look, Santa Claus has come through 2 weeks in a row for me. And Syracuse, Kyle McCord. Jake, thank you. Thank you for sending him to Syracuse.
One former Ohio State quarterback got a win this weekend, but it was not the one I wanted.
Yep. 380 yards. Saved the day. I equated it to Mary Poppins' old adage. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That nasty, disgusting medicine of losing to your rival, South Carolina, on a 3rd and 16 blown assignment, let the freaking quarterback run for 94 yards. Hurt that little sugar from Fran Brown. Clean Fran Brown. He got to wash. Made me feel a lot better. Jake, what if I'll tell you more about that later. I couldn't handle myself on Saturday. I was angry. I'm still angry. I'm not over. I don't think I'll be over it until Wednesday. I'm in the denial phase. Maybe slightly still depressed. The entire drive over to the tree farm, Jake, all I did was think about plays that we just missed that would have put them away. Made me sick. You know what, Jake? You know what make me feel better?
Neil Brown getting fired?
If another team is feeling the same thing I'm feeling right now. Would you know of another team like that?
Yeah. Myself. Do you want to go into our news? Or are we going straight into this?
No, I want to hear what you got to say. I want to hear.
I mean, for anybody listening, I didn't get a chance to watch South Carolina Clemson game, and you didn't get really a chance to watch the Ohio State Michigan game. So neither of us really felt each other's pain because we didn't get to watch the other one. Ohio State, I thought, would clean the slate here. Make up for 3 years of misery. And first drive, they stop Michigan. I think Michigan gets one first down, but then they punt. Drive the whole way down the field, kick a field goal from like the 16-yard line, I want to say. It was something – it's close, but it was too far on the distance to be able to go for it. And I'm thinking, okay, points on the board, but we proved that we can move the ball. They were passing the ball. Carnell Tate gets three reception on the first drive. That was about the best we looked other than the 2-minute offense. And the 2-minute offense, Jeremiah Smith gets called for, there's a defensive PI on him because they can't guard him. Yeah. Actually, I think he had 2 defensive PIs on that drive, now that I think about it. I'm trying to remember when the other one was. Breaks open, scores a touchdown. Shocking, Jeremiah Smith scores a touchdown. They make it 10-10. You think, okay, you go into halftime. You can see what's going on. You just drove down the field. You scored a touchdown, and it was an 8-play drive, and 7 of them were passes. Hey, it's working. Hey, 2 minutes. Let's go with speed. Let's do it. Let's go with it. What do? We come out, and we think that running the ball straight into Mason Graham's gut is the best way to do it.
What did we talk about last week? We said there's one thing they can't do.
You can't run it at the best players. Will Johnson and Colston Loveland didn't play. Will Johnson, the best cornerback in the country, is not playing. Why are you not using your wide receivers? I don't care if you're not trying to stretch the field because you're not getting a ton of time because your offensive line is being overpowered by your defensive line. There's no reason that you can't have your 4 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers and a tight end, in creative passing routes and mesh routes and rub routes to get open. If they're running zone, the receivers are smart enough to be able to find the hole in the zone. These guys are incredibly smart wide receivers. And the fact that they basically gave up throwing the ball, and when they did, it was like throwback screens. It was questionable, is putting it kindly. It was downright pitiful play calling.
Yeah.
It was so pitiful that the Michigan defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, came out and said, I didn't think that they would do that. I didn't think they'd basically be stupid enough to do that, because you shouldn't be. You know how good these guys are. They're going to be top 20 draft picks. Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are monsters. The amount of time I heard their name called on, because they announced the tackle after every time, tackle by Mason Graham, tackle by Kenneth Grant. I haven't looked at the box scores because I don't care to look at the box scores, because why should I? You lost. And I think the hardest part for Ohio State fans, and I would say I'm not in this group, but I know there's a lot of people that are. 2021, 2022, they view that as it doesn't count because they view that as the cheating, the Connor Stallions. Some of them even view 2023, even though Stallions was gone at that point. Last year, you were on the road. You can blame Kyle McCord. He throws an interception. This year, there's no excuse. You don't have anything to fall back on. I think that's the hardest part for all of these fans, is there's nothing to fall back on. You can't say Connor Stallions cheated. You can't say that you had an inept quarterback. There's nothing out there for a reason why you didn't win. You were better. You had more talent in almost every position, with the exception of your offensive line against their defensive line. Eventually, Michigan finally wore out Ohio State's defense and ran the ball in the fourth quarter. Michigan didn't punt in the fourth quarter. Eventually, their offensive line just was able to wear out the Ohio State defense because they were on the field so much. Ohio State could not get the ball moving. Their defense spent way too much time on the field, where, eventually Khalil Mullins was able to break one. It was 3rd and long, and I don't even blame the defensive line for not being able to bring down Khalil Mullins on a 3rd and long, because they had been out there so much. Should he make that tackle? Yeah, probably. But, the coaching put them in a terrible position. I will say that. I don't think there's any one player to blame. I think this comes down on Ryan Day and Chip Kelly. Like 1,000%. It's Ryan Day. It's Chip Kelly. Ryan Day, I think, has a complex of, ever since he was called soft, being born on third base by Jim Harbaugh, he has to prove that he can run the ball. He has to prove that his team is physically stronger, physically tougher. And he can't. And he can't. But the best way to prove that your team is tougher? By winning.
Yep.
By throwing a crooked number up on the scoreboard and winning 49-10.
There's
Nobody
no
cares
argument.
how tough you are and how many rushing yards you had if you score 49 points.
No argument over the dub.
Nobody cares how many rushing yards you had if you win. Nobody cares about the box scores if you win. That's all they care about. Ohio State could have came out with a 1-point victory. People would be annoyed, but they'd be fine with it. The fact is, you lost when you were a 3-touchdown favorite, though. There's my rant, and there's no way to defend Ryan Day. There's a lot of questions. Should Day be fired? I think there's a genuine question there, because I posed this question online after the game, and somebody said, well, he went 10-2. It's like, well, how many other coaches could you put in Ryan Day's shoes right now with that roster and gone 10-2?
Look, I got one reason why I don't think they'll fire him.
I don't think they will either, but that's my justification there.
If people need to be convinced, the one reason why they won't is go look at that recruiting class. Even with the guys you think are going to flip, go look at the recruiting class. I don't understand why London Merritt wants to go to Colorado. That whole roster is going to be gone. But
there's enough talent coming in, and you have enough talent on that roster. Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State is already a national championship contender next year. Doesn't matter who all they lose. You can lose Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer was supposed to have his moment. He intercepts Davis Warren at the 2-yard line. The local Ohio kid, he's from 20 minutes from down the road. That was his moment to become the legend. It wasn't the fight after the game. It was the interception, the 2-yard line that he runs at 10 yards further. Ohio State at that point was supposed to drive down the field to win the game. That's the script. That's the script.
3 and out. They went 3 and out.
Yeah, the script right there.
Run incomplete.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it was.
You know what, Jake? You know why they ran the ball in the middle? It's because you have a Remington Award finalist center that was playing, right?
Yeah.
He tore his Achilles 2 weeks ago. So it's not like you hadn't had time to prepare for a team like Michigan, whose strongest part of their team is the interior of their defensive line. Thank God I'm an Ohio State fan, because I would be livid, beyond livid. I think I would have broken things. I would have broken items in my household had I been an Ohio State fan. And I'm not rubbing it in, Jake. The only reason I say that is because this was the year to beat Michigan. Michigan's down. Oh, yeah. They are out.
They're not good.
They're a really bad football team. They're missing their 2 best players, 1 or 2 of their best players, in Colston Loveland, who is the only thing that has a pulse on offense, and Will Johnson. Like you said, why are you not just throwing the ball down the field? You threw the ball 33 times. So it's not like you didn't have the ball. So we talked before, and you alluded to the fact that maybe Will Howard was hurt.
Yeah,
is that why they stopped throwing the ball down the field?
He took a shot in the second quarter. He ran the ball. It was 3rd and 5. He tucked it and run it, and took a pretty nasty shot on the shoulder. Where I thought it was targeting, but you got to remember, I'm in the stands and I have one view, and it's the live view from the 3rd deck. So I couldn't really tell. I saw a bunch of clips. It looked like it was more shoulder to shoulder, but I mean, Will Howard was on the ground. He'd be taken off, was checked for a concussion. They ran the ball. I think there was a timeout after that, and Will Howard ran up and down the sideline. You could tell he was trying to make sure they could get in. It looked like they weren't going to give him his helmet at first, and they did. I have to wonder if he doesn't play, how they manage that. But if he's going to play, Devin Brown went in for 1 play and handed the ball off, and they got first down on a 4th and 1. They did like an end around kind of play. But yeah, it was Ohio State's defense was up for the task. Like they played well. They played well, but eventually they just broke down. I mean, it was the 4th quarter, and
you should never lose giving up 13 points with the amount of weapons you have in your offense.
No, I haven't even looked. I'm guessing Michigan had something like crazy low, like 250 total yards or something like that.
They had 60 yards through the air and I think 170 on the ground. So 230.
Yeah. If you allow 13 points and 230 yards and force 2 interceptions, you're going to win that game 9 out of 10 times. This is the one time you didn't, because your offensive play calling was terrible.
Yeah. Well, we lost for the same reason, but for defensive play calling was god awful.
And Donovan Edwards also got hurt in that game. So my guess is that he won't play in the bowl game either. I'll be interested to see who from Michigan actually plays in a bowl game, because I think you're going to have opt-outs left and right. Anyways, let's jump into some news. Go ahead.
Quick guess. How many yards do you think Michigan's leading receiver had?
Oh, it's got to be something ungodly low, like 26.
Lower.
18.
18. Ding, 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 ding. Peyton O'Leary.
Nobody had more than only Donovan Edwards had 2 catches for 2 yards, and Marlon Klein had 3 catches for 13 yards. Other than that, everybody had 1 catch.
Yep.
Disgusting.
No business was in that game.
Jeremiah Smith had 5 catches for 35 yards. That's disgustingly low.
I don't understand. Like, these games are fireable games. Like, you can lose your job over these games. With how the offenses look all year, I don't know how Chip Kelly does have a job next year, Jake. I mean, I think if anybody should take a brunt of the blame, it's him. They haven't looked good offensively all year. I
think if you get rid of Kelly, I do think that just Chip Kelly might go because of that. I think that is a very 100% fireable offense. If this was the 14 playoff, I think you would be seeing mass changes right now. But Ohio State is in line for a playoff spot, and we'll jump into that now. That the playoff rankings came out. Ohio State, for instance, is ranked 8th, or they're ranked 6th, but they would be the 8th seed because playoff rankings continue to confuse, and you have to do the math in your head to figure out where everybody's going technically. But they would be the 8th seed, and there's really no way they can go down because 9, 10, 11, 12 are all not playing. So the only way the committee said that those are locked. So Ohio State is locked in for a home playoff game at least. They could potentially go up depending on what Georgia and Penn State do. If they both lose, we'll see what happens with that. I think they would stay behind Texas and Oregon for sure, though.
Yeah.
But right now they'd be on pace to host Tennessee in a playoff game, which would be a lot of fun and would be very, very interesting to see Dylan Sampson go against Ohio State's defensive front and Ohio State's wide receivers go against that Tennessee defense. But too high, too low, just right. Who is your too high?
My too high is Miami. And let me tell you why. So Miami has the number 2 total offense in the country. Whoop-de-doo. That's great. You can score at will. We've seen that every single game. But their Achilles heel, and I'm trying to get the exact number now, is their defense. And their total defense is one of the worst in the country. And your 2 losses are to Georgia Tech, which Georgia Tech is a formidable opponent. I mean, they've beaten some pretty good teams this year. But they're Georgia Tech. They're 7-5. And Syracuse, which Syracuse is 9-3 and finally ranked. But, you're Miami. You're supposed to be the best team in the country. They have no business being in the top 12. Honestly, I think they're the 15th best team in the country. All the teams that are ranked right behind them, South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss, I think would all boat race them.
I think Miami's got one of the best offenses in the country. The problem is they have one of the worst defenses in the country.
Yeah.
Cam Ward's obviously electric, but I don't think their defensive rank truly reflects how bad they are. No. Because they have a couple games where their defense looked okay because they played, Florida State and Florida at the beginning of the year when Florida sucked. So I don't think their defense truly reflects, but when they had big games like Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, Syracuse, they're giving up 35, 40 points a game.
This is how I know ranks and stats can lie. They have a 24th ranked total defense. Get that out of my freaking face. There's no way.
Miami's defense is significantly worse than that.
Yeah.
For my too high, I have Missouri. I know their rank doesn't matter, but
you got to stick with the brand.
Missouri is not the 19th best team. I would put Illinois ahead of them. Illinois is playing better football than them. And I would love to see Missouri and Illinois match up because I think Illinois would beat them. And I think
What's
Illinois
Missouri's best win?
I don't know. Do they win games?
I don't think so. Because I would put Syracuse in front of them. They had the same record, and Syracuse is beating the top 10 team.
Syracuse also beat UNLV, which is another top 25 team.
Right. Who is Missouri beating that's ranked? Kentucky?
Missouri has beat
Auburn?
Let's see. So Missouri beat Vanderbilt. Shouldn't have.
Not ranked.
They beat Auburn. They beat Oklahoma. They beat Mississippi State.
Not ranked.
They beat Arkansas.
Not ranked.
They beat what was ranked Boston College team.
Yeah, not ranked.
Buffalo and Murray State.
Yeah, okay. Get the hell out of here, Missouri. What is this? What is this? And their 3 losses are to whom? South Carolina, Alabama,
and Texas A&M. And Alabama and Texas A&M beat them a combined 75-10.
Yeah. Hey, Jake, you know what? This is a gritty podcast. I'm over here bleeding.
Ooh.
I'm over here bleeding for the people, for the 5-star listeners.
Doing it for the people. Doing it for the
blood
people.
on my table, blood on my hand. I'm doing it for you.
Who's your too low?
Conference championship weekend. My too low, South Carolina. And Jake, we had some conversation before this, but the committee obviously just told us that wins are more important than losses. And I'm okay with that. But if you look at who South Carolina lost to, South Carolina lost to LSU, who's 7-5, right? 7-5 or 6-6?
7 and no. Who'd you say? LSU? They're 8-4.
LSU. They're 8-4. Okay, so 8-4 LSU and Alabama, who's ranked 11th, and Ole Miss, who's ranked 12th or 13th? 12th. No, 13th,
Oh.
because Miami's 12th. So there are 2 losses to Ole Miss and Alabama. Alabama has lost to Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee. Very bad losses, besides Tennessee. And Ole Miss has lost to Kentucky, Florida, and who's their third?
Which when you're
whose third was Ole Miss? Kentucky.
Goodness, this is
Why
great
is this?
podcasting.
It was LSU. It was LSU.
Yeah,
and LSU. So they share the LSU loss. I just don't understand. All right, so this is the point we brought up earlier, Jake. If South Carolina had lost to Georgia and Texas, now granted, Georgia and Texas are ranked a lot higher, but had they had 3 losses, and the other 2 were Georgia and Texas, not Ole Miss and Alabama, are they ranked higher? Are they ranked higher than Alabama?
Absolutely. Because South Carolina, the problem is the games on the field have to matter. Like they have to matter, and the head-to-head, because I don't think there's any conceivable way that you can look at them and say, yep, South Carolina is better than Ole Miss and Alabama, as long as you ignore the game on the field.
Right, because now what people say, and I agree with that. My biggest qualm is, why is Miami ahead of them? Miami has no business being ahead of them.
Yeah, I would give you Miami should be below them. I think the ranking of Alabama, I mean, I don't know how there'd be a way you could put Ole Miss in front of South Carolina when they've got similar, like Ole Miss beat Georgia.
Right.
Like that's a huge win. You know, when you look at Ole Miss, they beat South Carolina, they beat Georgia. I know the losses are not good. Florida, especially Kentucky, that's really bad. LSU is not as bad. But I mean, you beat them by 21 points. You beat, or 27-3. You beat by 24 points.
Right.
In South Carolina, in Columbia. That's not a fluky win. That's not, you can blame something, blame this. Like, you just beat them.
They smacked them down. And right now, everyone's biggest argument, well, Alabama and Ole Miss want to play South Carolina right now, but you have played already. And it happened, and you lost. Yes, would you probably beat them in a hypothetical game right now?
Yeah, 100%.
But did you when you had the opportunity? No. And that's I actually agree with the committee on putting Alabama and Ole Miss in front of them for that reason itself. They didn't do that last year with Florida State, and that pissed everybody off. And I think that was wrong because they put a product on the field regardless of who was going to go out there. Honestly, Jake, why did Jordan Travis not win the Heisman Trophy if the committee thought he was so important that they couldn't be one of the top 4 teams in the country being undefeated? So
you're going to make a lot of friends with Florida State fans right now.
That's old hash, and look what they did this year without him. So
anyway, without everybody else.
Yeah. I think South Carolina is still too low. Maybe it's 1 or 2 spots too low, but it's too low.
Yeah, I am thinking that Arizona State is too low. Arizona State has been one of the hottest teams in college football. And, I mean, we talk about the games have to matter. They lose to Texas Tech. They lose to Cincinnati. Obviously, those are not great losses. Texas Tech actually is 8-4. So Texas Tech is actually a significantly better team than people think. Cincinnati is a really rough loss. But, they beat BYU. They beat Kansas State. Utah's not good, but you beat a good Kansas team. Like, you're handling business. Arizona's not good, but you won 49-7 right last week. I think Arizona State is trending upward, and I'm not sure exactly where I'd put them if I had done that, but I'm interested to see if Arizona State somehow wins this weekend against Iowa State, if they were to jump then Boise State, because if you start digging into that, I mean, you might be able to justify that Arizona State has a better record or better resume.
Yeah.
But I think
Boise State's only 2 ranked wins would be against the same team if they hypothetically beat UNLV.
Exactly. And Boise State's strength of schedule right now is 86th, with Arizona State's right now they're 72nd. It's going to jump up because right now they have the 8th ranked remaining strength of schedule, but that's also a ranked team. So it'll jump up, and certainly UNLV will drop out of the rankings with a loss. I don't care what the committee says. UNLV, if they lose again, they're probably going to drop out of the rankings. Meanwhile, Iowa State will probably be at like 20.
Right.
So I can see them finding a way where Iowa State the win over Iowa State will be better than the win over UNLV. The question is that enough for them to all of a sudden have them jump all the SEC teams?
10,
yeah, like I don't see it, but I really like what Arizona State is doing right now.
Yeah, me too.
Arizona State is a team I would not want to play in the first round.
I can't wait to talk. I can't wait to talk that game when we get to the season or the game previews.
And then you're just right.
I got Oregon. They're undefeated. They're number one. This is vanilla. I've done this before this year. In a year with all this chaos, Oregon just floats right on by. They beat the brakes off of Washington. They had one scare against Wisconsin. They've had three scares this year. Do you remember the three scares?
For
four
Oregon?
scares. Excuse me, 4 scares. I forgot about Ohio State.
Ohio State, Boise State, Idaho, and Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin. So there's one good team on there. I mean, Boise State's a decent team. I think their rating is a little inflated, and I think it all comes from Ashton Jeanty. I'm afraid when Boise State gets into where they're going to get boat raced. However, I'm not talking about that. All Oregon has done this year is handle their business in a really big time way. They're top 25 in almost all statistical categories, offensively and defensively. I mean, they're just a really good, complete football team. So hats off to Oregon.
I have a hot take, and you can tell me if this is wrong or not. I think if we're going to value conference champions as these top 5 seeds or these top 4 seeds in getting a bye, I think the 5th one should be able to host a playoff game.
Yeah,
I think the 5th one should be at worst the 8 seed.
But the reason they didn't do that, Jake, is because they assumed the 5th one would be a G5 school. So could you imagine? Well, we might have to imagine because Alabama might be traveling to Boise State.
That would, if somehow it would take, I don't think it would take some interesting thing. Like, I don't know if Boise State can jump too much higher. Like, I could see Boise State jumping Indiana. I don't see them jumping Tennessee, though.
Right.
And it would take Arizona State being in front of all of them to do that. But let's say if the top 4 teams were all conference champs, basically, and Boise State was sitting there at 10, this would be hilarious because I would love to see somebody. But yes, you're right that they didn't plan on a group of 5 team getting in a bye. They planned on the group of 5 team being ranked 22nd and getting the 12 seed.
Right.
So my just right is SMU. I think SMU is perfectly rated right there. I think they belong behind Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee. I think they are above Indiana just because they have played a tougher schedule overall. Indiana played one really good team, SMU, while they have not played, super top tier talent. I mean, BYU is still a top 25 team. They took them to the wire. I mean, they've handled business. They're winning games pretty large the last couple of weeks. I think that they deserve to be ahead of Indiana and Boise State, but I do think they're behind the other Power 5 teams between Ohio State, Georgia, and Tennessee.
They're a blocked extra point from all this being null and void.
Yep.
Against Duke.
Yep.
Because weekend I was at your house.
Yep. And then if that happens, well, technically SMU and Clemson would still be playing.
Yeah, but it wouldn't. I think the conversation would be a lot different. I think SMU and Clemson would be locked into playing for the 5th spot had that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and now there's a chance that Clemson is the 12th seed.
Yep. Hey, I'll take it anywhere we can get it, baby.
Which would be funny.
Little old Clemson.
A couple other news here. West Virginia makes the move to fire Neil Brown.
Hey, did he have fun? Did he have fun while he was there?
But did he have fun? That's the important
If he
thing.
had fun, he won. I like Neil Brown. I hate that for him, but I hate that more for the West Virginia fan base because they deserve better. I mean, that's a good, passionate fan base that loves football, and honestly, that they have history of being good, and he just wasn't cutting it. So
He's 37 and 35 across
Yeah.
5 seasons. I mean, you want to talk about just average. He only won more than 6 games once in 5 seasons. I mean, you can't be just a 6-6 team at West Virginia. They don't expect you to be a national championship contender, but I mean, there's no reason why you can't win 8 or 9 games yearly there at West Virginia.
Right.
Like,
honestly,
I mean,
any recruit that comes in, all you have to do is play the Tavon Austin highlights on the Jumbotron, and you should
that
get
should
everybody.
be on repeat. Just on repeat. Is Jimbo Fisher going to be the next head coach at West Virginia?
No, because then he doesn't get his buyout money from Texas A&M.
I thought he did anyways.
If he does, then maybe Nick Saban comes out of retirement. You know, he was a West Virginia guy.
I looked into this a little bit, and Jimbo Fisher, because he's from West Virginia, like he was born and raised in West Virginia.
Yeah, him and Nick Saban are from the same hometown, I'm pretty sure.
They're both from West Virginia. Nick Saban, I do think you have to pick up the phone and call Nick Saban first. I don't care how old he is. You pick up the phone, you call him, and you say, are you interested in this? And you make him say no. He's going to say no. He's going to say no. But you have to make the phone call. You can't not make that phone call.
Right.
Even if you only got 3 years out of Nick Saban in West Virginia, he would build the program to a level where it would be a desired job after that.
Hire a 3 head coach system of Pat White, Stedman Bailey, and Tavon Austin. See where it goes.
That is a phenomenal idea. What about bringing back Rich Rod? Just saying.
I love that tweet you put out there. You're talking about you edited the
Photoshop Rich Rod.
Yeah,
Photoshop. That's
pretty good. Who else is sitting over there in Fired Coaches of America land that could probably do that job? Jamie Chadwell, not too far away.
So I looked up a couple other names. Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator from Penn State, his name being thrown around as a potential interview candidate. Barry Odom at UNLV could be an interesting guy.
James Franklin,
he was already there once this year. Maybe he bought a house. I mean, Glenn Schumann at Georgia, I think could be an interesting if they want to go with a defensive-minded guy. Pete Golding, possibly, out of Ole Miss.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin.
Clayton White down at South Carolina, I think could be an interesting guy over the next couple of years.
Yeah, he's made a lot of money for himself with the defensive performance this year. I mean, West Virginia is not a bad place to be. You're in a recruiting hotbed. You have the DMV. You're in the Ohio Valley. You have Pennsylvania, all right there. I mean,
there are a ton of guys at West Virginia that come from the Pittsburgh area, from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, like you mentioned. Kentucky's got a decent amount of guys. You take the Ohio State guys that Ohio State doesn't want, basically. There's a ton of talent in that area that you don't have to go, more than 300 miles away to find guys. And then you always go recruit Florida and Texas because, you have to, because every program has to.
Clemson loves dipping in Ohio. I mean, a lot of our big-time guys have been coming from Ohio lately. Blake Miller just got a guy yesterday from the Cincinnati area, from St. Xavier, who's supposed to be signing with us tomorrow. Phenomenal offensive tackle.
There's a lot of really good football in Ohio that people don't realize, and there's a lot of depth there. I mean, Caleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa, was from Cincinnati as well. I mean, he was second in the country in rushing yards this year. So
he's a beast.
I think West Virginia is a very, very interesting job. And I think that there's a lot of guys that might be interested in taking this position. Another one that opened, Gus Malzahn goes to Florida State to become the offensive coordinator. UCF opens up, which I think is another interesting job because you're right there in Florida and it's now a Power 4 job. You've got a massive program with a large fan base. It's one of the largest schools in the country. I think it's a little bit less desirable than West Virginia just because how new it is to the Power 4 stage. And I would say that UCF is in a little bit worse condition than West Virginia is right now. So
maybe you get the right guy in there. I mean, in the transfer portal area, you can turn it around pretty quick.
G.J. Kinney is a name that keeps getting thrown around. The Texas State head coach. He is actually a Gus Malzahn.
He's phenomenal.
He's from the Gus Malzahn tree, but he was only there at UCF for 1 year. John Sumrall, I think he's going to get picked up from Tulane. Somebody's going to pick him up. That guy just keeps winning. Just keeps winning. One name I saw thrown out there, which I think would be hilarious, is Jim Mora Jr. going to UCF from UConn.
Yeah.
Junior's done well at UConn, but there's no reason that he should be the UCF head coach. I threw him on my list, but there's no reason. Charlie Weiss Jr., I think, could be getting a job here in the next couple of years. I mean, somebody just hired, I think it was FAU just hired a 33-year-old dude from Texas Tech, maybe?
Texas Tech, yeah. The defensive coordinator, maybe.
I mean, Charlie Weiss Jr. is 31. What's to say that he can't take over a job?
Yeah.
Also, Dan Mullen, because why not?
I mean, why not? If you're going to get him out of retirement, it would be in the state of Florida again. And he can recruit.
He honestly, his first 3 seasons at Florida, he was 29-9. He was actually having success. Problem is, the last 2 years, he did not have success.
Yeah. At least, yeah.
His final year, he was 5-6. Like, just funny thinking that they're 5-6 and Billy Napier has continued to keep a job while doing that. But
yeah.
Dan
Was that Jeff Driscoll? Jeff Driscoll with the 5-6? Emory Jones?
Yeah, that would have been like Emory Jones and whatnot.
Felipe Franks? I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. Going in your bag on this one. And then transfer portal open, and Lord knows everybody's in the portal. I'm in the portal. You're in the portal. We're all in the portal.
The worst thing about the portal right now is that there's still games left. You should not be able to open the portal when there's still games left. I know it's about getting into the different school.
The portal hasn't even opened yet. The portal hasn't opened until Monday, but everybody's just announcing their intentions to enter the portal.
Right. Well, and it's because of, I mean, some of these guys, we have to remember, people, not all players leave on their own accord. Some of these guys are being told to kick rocks because they got a guy coming in that they want to replace their scholarship with. So don't bash every single guy that's stepping into the transfer portal.
And a lot of these guys, I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, your team's going to be on a playoff run. Like, why aren't you sticking around? Spots are limited with all these teams. And if you're a offensive lineman, if you're a wide receiver and you're trying to get a starting position, they might only be taking one offensive tackle. They might only be taking 1 or 2 wide receivers. And once they're taken, like, they're gone. They ain't going to wait around for you to enter the portal.
And I agree with that thought process. And because they shouldn't be talking to him anyway, because that's tampering.
You're right. I'm thinking more of the guys that, like, a Power 5 program that are like, hey, like, I'm buried on the depth chart. Like, I'm, 4th string here. Like, I'm not seeing playing time. I got 1 or 2 years left. I'm trying to go play.
What's the cat from Georgia that's leaving? Humphreys or whatever.
That one's interesting. Julian Humphrey.
He's playing, and you're on a playoff
he started,
team.
I think, 10 games this year.
Right. So, like, my counter argument to what you're saying is, if a guy is good enough, a team will take him in the spring transfer portal.
Yes. Like, if you're Jordan Addison entering the portal, you can go wherever you want.
Somebody will make a spot for you.
Yes. But I'm thinking of the guys that are, you're the third string tight end, and you're playing at, Alabama. Like, you're blocked.
Sense.
You're blocked. And I understand that, hey, you might want to be there for the ride, but ultimately, if you want to play, you've got to go find that spot. And you don't want to be, forced out in a position that, hey, maybe you don't like the coach, maybe you don't like the location, maybe, this, that, or the other thing. You want to try to find a spot for you. And you have to do that by entering the portal early so you can start doing your visits, get locked in. I will say I do like the idea of National Signing Day being before the portal, because instead of having all these dudes in the portal and then trying to figure out, for recruits wise, of who's coming in, who's going out, all that kind of stuff, here's the portal. Like, here's the recruits. They're all signed. Now it's time to figure out who's
leaving. Yeah,
who's leaving.
Yeah, and it's easier for the coaching staff. It's better on the coaching staff in the school too. I mean, I feel like more kids get screwed over in this time period, and then you have these decommits and these flips. I have a feeling that this National Signing Day might be one of the craziest National Signing Days we've had, maybe ever. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. Like, the reason I say that is because we've had a lot of flips just in the last couple of days, and with the transfer portal,
feels like every single quarterback has flipped.
Right, with the transfer portal, with this new roster management legal whatever coming down where the roster sizes have changed. There's going to be a lot more transfers, and there's going to be a lot more people. It's going to be insane. I know that's not a complete thought, but I think we're going to have a lot more people who are saying they're committed, and literally on early National Signing Day, people signing somewhere else. And I think the majority of the class is going to sign tomorrow, of everybody's class. Because of the transfer portal, you kind of have to.
Yeah, there'll be some chaos there tomorrow. Like I said, I do like the idea of the portal opening up afterwards. For coaches, you don't have to go and try to recruit kids late then to fill, voids if you want, freshmen. You can now use the portal to help fill your voids, understanding that you probably have an idea who's going to be entering the portal anyways. Tampering, obviously. But if you're Penn State, if you're Ohio State, if you're Alabama, if you're Georgia, you probably have an idea who's entering. And there's probably not going to be too many surprises. And if there are, there's going to be enough guys in the portal to go help fill and build depth. Yep. All right, one other game that we'll talk about before we jump into upcoming games. We got to talk about Georgia Tech going 8 overtimes because, my goodness, did you know that Georgia was going to be in the playoffs if they won? And did you know that Georgia's senior class had never lost a home game?
Yeah, I did not. And Joe Tessitore did not tell me that, so that's messed up on his part.
Oh, you didn't hear Joe Tessitore say it every 8 seconds?
Yeah. Did you know that 9 overtimes is the record?
It really felt like the toy where, the drawstring in the back, that he just had 3 lines.
He ran out of content. I mean, hats off to the dude. He's still spewing out stuff 8 overtimes deep, but that he just ran out of content. That's the only explanation I have.
Because I swear, from the 3rd overtime on, every time that Georgia was on offense, he would say, Georgia locks a spot for the playoff with a win. And when they're on defense, he would say, the seniors have never lost a home game. It was like clockwork, it was like, Joe, come on, dude, my guy. Like, we got to come up with something different. At least phrase it different. You're saying it the exact same way every single time. But this game, it really felt like Georgia Tech gave it away. Like, I know there were some questionable calls, but it really felt like Georgia Tech gave it away.
Yeah, they did. And, we can blame the refs all we want, and rightfully so in some circumstances. But at the end of the day, that was Georgia Tech's game to lose, and they didn't finish the job. And it sucks because I think everyone in the nation, maybe even some Georgia fans, are pulling for Georgia Tech to pull it off. To end the misery of having to wait up that late. But everyone wanted to see David beat Goliath, and it just didn't quite happen. And Georgia Tech has been top 10 teams bugaboo all year, and it just looked like they were going to walk the dog, and all of a sudden they just ran out of magic fairy dust, and it all came down to that Haynes King fumble, which was it targeting?
Probably,
but it wasn't called, so no, it wasn't.
The way I view it is, you had 8 overtimes to try to win this game. You can't blame the refs when you get that many overtimes. And I want to put this take out there, as I used to really love these 2-point conversions.
I hate it.
I think I liked it the first time because of the Penn State Illinois game was just comical. Yeah. This game was also comical, but it kept me up late at night, and I wasn't happy that it just kept me up late at night. I wanted to go to bed.
Yep.
I told my wife at 10:15 that I'd be not far behind her because this game was a blowout. And then it was 12:15, and we were still in overtime.
So it's your fault.
Yeah, it's my fault.
And you know what's an even crazier stat? An even crazier stat is that Georgia only had 108 yards total rushing in this game. What has happened to this dominant Georgia offensive line? Jake, and we're going to talk about this later in the SEC preview. Georgia ranks 101st in the nation in rushing offense. 101st. You have Trevor Etienne. You have Nate Frazier. You have
Etienne
Robinson.
Hasn't been playing.
But you've had all these guys at portions of the season. What the heck has happened? And you have what was supposed to be one of the best offensive lines in the country. What is happening over there? I don't know. That honestly, Georgia won the game, but they didn't win. You know what I mean? It didn't look pretty.
Yeah, not having Etienne I think hurts because he's been injured. That's
Absolutely.
definitely an explosive running back. Nate Frazier's fine, but he's definitely not like what they're used to with some of these running backs, that have come through there over the last decade for sure.
Yeah.
Let's jump into this weekend. So we've obviously got some massive games with the championship games. We'll start with the ACC championship game. Clemson has a chance to make the
You want
playoff.
to start with the Mountain West since it's Friday?
Oh, yeah, we can start with Mountain West.
First game first?
First game first. Mountain West, we have the UNLV Rebels and Boise State playing. Ashton Jeanty has a chance to make a Heisman statement because Travis Hunter is not playing. It's down to Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. Are we in on that?
Yeah, and
Dylan Gabriel's in third, basically, but because he's the best quarterback on the best team.
Yeah.
Like, if Dante Moore was 12-0 and the quarterback of that team, he would be in that position. Dylan Gabriel was a product of being the 12-0 team. Anyways, do you think that Boise State can win this game, or does UNLV get revenge?
I think UNLV gets revenge. And let me tell you why. So both these teams are pretty even in all aspects of the game. They're both terrible in pass defense. They're both really good at rush defense. They're both really good at running the football. But Boise State is 104th in the country in pass defense efficiency. Essentially, how efficient is the team against them passing the ball? So they're bad at allowing yards, and they're bad at just the chunk plays. UNLV is 34th in the country. So although they're 109th in total pass defense, they're 34th in the country in pass defense efficiency. So they do a pretty good job. But that's not even what the X factor is of the game. The X factor of the game, in my opinion, is the fact that they're multi-dimensional with their rushing attack. Outside of Ashton Jeanty, what is Boise State's offense?
Ashton Jeanty.
Right. So if he's not touching the ball and they're able to contain him a little bit better than they did in the first game, it's going to be tough sledding. But UNLV can run with their quarterback. They can run with the running back. I mean, they're multifaceted in their run game. So I'm curious to see if the quarterback and the running back can get going. Hajij Williams, I'm forgetting his full name, and then I'm forgetting
Malik
the running back's name.
Malik Williams.
Taj Malik Williams, thank you. Taj Malik Williams. This is phenomenal podcasting, by the way. Right when you go to talk about a team, just completely blank on everybody's name. So shout out to me. So I think UNLV actually gets this one done. I think Ashton Jeanty, the nail in the coffin, the nail gets put in his Heisman Trophy season coffin, and their playoff coffin.
They actually did a pretty good job of containing him. I mean, Jeanty only had 3.9 yards per carry, only along of 16 the first time they played. But, I mean, he is such a threat in the running game that you have to put additional resources to him.
Yeah.
Maddox Madsen is fine. I don't think Boise State has the capability of winning a playoff game. I will say that. I don't think UNLV does either. I do not think either of these teams will match up very well when we get to the playoffs, and I'm more than happy to be wrong. By all means, if I'm wrong, I'm going to be ecstatic. So if you listen to this and go, haha, you were wrong, I'm going to say, haha, I was wrong.
I'm glad I was.
Going to be celebrating with you. I'm not going to be celebrating against myself. So I do think that UNLV has the ability to do this. I mean, they only lost by 5, and This was a close game. I mean, Boise State was down. They had to score in the fourth quarter to take the lead. By all means, UNLV can absolutely win this game. And Haj Malik Williams has now been playing, been the starter for more than just one game. He's been the starter for the rest of the season.
Jaden Thomas, by the way, is the running back. Sorry, Jaden.
I guess technically he was in his 5th game. I really thought that this game was way closer to when Haj Malik Williams took over, and it was not. But I mean, he's been a threat in the running game. I mean, he had over 100 yards rushing against Boise State. He had over 100 yards last week against Nevada. His rushing ability, I think that UNLV has to score in the 30s to win this game.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think that they're going to be able to contain Ashton Jeanty and Boise State to less than 20 points. I mean, you could say 28. I mean, they needed 29 to win last time. I think you need to safely 30 points to win this game.
Right.
Boise State's got a pretty good defense, but I think that this game could also be a shootout.
Yeah.
I know it was 29-24 last time. I think we could see in the 30s for both teams this time.
That's a rushing attack shootout. I mean, when you got two teams that can run the ball like they do, like scoring 29 to 30 points is a lot of points for rushing attacks. I mean, because you got to think of time of possession is so long. I mean, these drives are going to be very long sustained if you're able to run the ball at 4 yards a clip. I mean, Boise State won with Ashton Jeanty running for 3.9 yards a clip. And that's with a big run he had. I think he had a 70-yard touchdown in the game. You take that away, I mean, what's their average at that point?
Yeah. We'll see. I am excited for this game, and I think Ashton Jeanty, if he has a massive game, can jump up in some Heisman rankings. The problem is Heisman ballot's been out this week, and you're already allowed to vote. You shouldn't be allowed to vote until Sunday.
Yeah, I agree.
Stupid. Saturday at noon, I think, is the Big 12 championship game. We have Arizona State and Iowa State playing, which kind of is weird to me that they're at noon when that game is being played in Central Time. Is it being played in Dallas still, or they move it?
It is Arlington. Yeah, I think they play at noon every year. The Big 12 championship.
No, because that Texas-Nebraska game was at night the one year when it's Ndamukong Suh had his massive. Yeah, they've recently put it at noon, but I mean, I think they shouldn't play this one at noon, but I understand why they do, because
this one's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Cam Scatterbo is obviously phenomenal. Sam Leavitt, Arizona State's on a roll. Iowa State, though, Matt Campbell, a chance to make the playoff. I mean, you had them as your walk-on team, but I really feel like Iowa State has just flown under the radar all season long.
Yeah, I mean, they've dropped a couple games that they shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, Rocco Becht, Jalen Noel, and Abu Sama III have just carried this team to win a lot of their football games. But don't sleep on the defense. I mean, the defense is a pretty dang good is really good at stopping the pass. They're third in the country in stopping the pass, Jake. Now they struggle immensely against the run. They're 97th or 96th in the country against the run, but they're really good pass stopping defense. So I don't think Sam Leavitt is going to have an easy job, and Jordan Tyson is not going to have an easy job throwing on these two stud Iowa State corners. I mean, I don't know. I think this is going to be a really fun game. This is going to be high scoring. This one's going to come down to the wire. I think it's going to be similar to that Baylor. Who was it? Baylor and Oklahoma State game we had a few years ago.
Yep.
Where like the diving at the very end. Or even think about the TCU Kansas State game. That one was phenomenal. Like this is going to be the Big 12 always puts one of the best products in the world when you get to the conference championship weekend, because the teams are so even and it's so much fun to watch. I can't wait.
Can we talk about how Oklahoma State was projected to be in this game and went 0-9 in conference?
And I don't even think Mike Gundy's job is being considered high.
It should be. It should be.
It should be.
It really should be. Yeah, I really, really, really like Arizona State. They have just looked so good the last couple weeks, and they're really hitting their stride. Kenny Dillingham is one of the youngest coaches in college football, and I mean, Cam Scatterbo had 100.
Don't say that to him. I don't know if you saw that reporter got yelled at a little bit when he said that. I've been coaching for 17 years. I might be young, but I'm not young.
Thanks, Kenny. Yeah, but Cam Scatterbo had 177 yards and 3 touchdowns against Arizona. Sam Leavitt had 291 yards and 3 touchdowns against Arizona. Like they can sling the ball around. They can move the ball around. Like you get some of these guys in space, they're gonna make plays. Arizona State's not a team I'd want to play in the playoff if I were them.
No.
But they can't take Iowa State lightly. Iowa State, Matt Campbell. I mean, this dude, he just wins. He just wins. But he has not been able to get over the hump. But now with Texas and Oklahoma out of the picture, never know.
Here he is.
How many games would Oklahoma have won if they were in the Big 12 this year?
That's a good question.
If they had stuck around the Big 12, how many do you think they would have won?
Because they have a similar roster offensively to what Kansas State has. I think Jackson Arnold and Avery Johnson are very similar in how they play
I think they'd
football.
be an 8-4 team.
I think 8-4, 9-3 because the defense is phenomenal. I think it would be the best defense in the Big 12, hands down.
I think it would depend on who you got. If you had gotten, Oklahoma State and some of these other really crappy teams, if you had gotten like Oklahoma State, Arizona, and like Utah as a bunch of their games, I think you're looking 9 wins. If you're getting like Iowa State and BYU and Colorado and Kansas, I think you're closer to that 8-4 win.
I think they'd be equivalent, like a Colorado, 8-4, 9-3.
On to the SEC championship game afternoon. We get a rematch of Texas and Georgia this time.
Statistically, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, can Texas avenge their only loss of the year?
Well, statistically they should, but we watched what happened last time. The problem is which Georgia team shows up. Does Kentucky Georgia show up, or does Texas Georgia show up? Does second half against Alabama Georgia show up, or does first half against Alabama show up?
Does first half Georgia Tech or second half Georgia Tech show up?
Does the first overtime or the eighth overtime?
Even if you go back to their game against Texas, they were up 23-0, but it was 23-15 at the end of the third quarter.
Right.
So the second half, they didn't look great. Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions in that game.
And somehow they still won by double digits. I don't think Georgia's played a complete half all year. Think about it. Even the Clemson
they played a complete half. They haven't played a complete game.
That's what I meant. Thank you. Even the Clemson game, they looked pretty bad in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And then halfway through the third quarter, they show up. I don't know. It's like Texas is hot, but Quinn Ewers is hurt. I think this is tough. Honestly, the thing I think that separates these two is the running game. Even though Georgia's 101st in the country in the running game, well, actually, I don't know. They might not have the guys they had against Texas when they played earlier this year. This game is the biggest coin flip for me in terms of what you're going to get, because I have no idea which Georgia is going to show up. I think Texas has shown up the same way every single year. Spotty offense that just scores when it needs to score, gets the job done in the red zone, yada, yada. Plays really good defense every single week. So if that defense that Texas has makes Carson Beck turn the ball over like it did again, I think Texas beats him. I don't think they'll get him the same way. Plus, they started adding this little wrinkle of Arch Manning running the football. I think that's going to help them out immensely. This game is going to be really fun. One of the things that I have that I think is a little fun fact for you, Jake. I want you to guess how many passing touchdowns Texas has allowed this year.
Let's see. I'm going to go 9.
4. The answer is 4. They've only allowed 4 touchdowns. And I think it was against Mississippi State. I think it was against Arkansas. I think it was against I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this right now. But I think that's the difference in the game because Georgia's become so one-dimensional on offense and having to rely on Carson Beck just being a world beater. I think this Texas defense, the secondary, is what's going to be the difference in this game.
Yeah, Georgia hasn't looked good. Like they beat Tennessee. They looked really bad against Ole Miss. They should have lost to Florida. They should have lost to Georgia Tech. They didn't even look good against UMass. I have a hard time thinking that Georgia's going to be able to do this. Like, Carson Beck has been a turnover machine. They've been inconsistent, but they flex their muscles when they need to, it feels like. It just feels like eventually they just flex their muscles and they do it.
Right.
But you can do that against Georgia Tech because they have, less talent. The athletes aren't as skilled. You can't do that against Texas, although they did it the first time. But it almost felt like that game that Texas was overthinking themselves a little bit.
Right.
You pulled Quinn Ewers to put Arch Manning in just to pull Arch Manning to put Quinn Ewers back in. It felt like that game was so big to the university that Georgia was in town. They were, I forget what they were ranked, or Texas was ranked number 1, or somebody was ranked number 1, top. But
Texas
it was like,
yeah.
But it was such an important game to the university that you needed to, prove this. You needed to do this, and you needed to win this game, and you overthought it. Like, to me, that was like them overthinking it. I think Sark is going to settle down in this one, and I really like Texas this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Next one here, we've got the Big Ten championship. We've got Penn State and Oregon matching up this week. Penn State backdoors their way into the Big Ten championship game. Fun fact, tickets to this game are super cheap because, shockingly, Oregon fans are not traveling all across the country on this, even though they know about it. Because
will the duck be in the river?
Could be. Let me put this out there. I think Oregon fans are not spending the money to go to this because Oregon fans know that they might have to go to 3 more playoff games.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be spending money on this game when, in reality, it won't matter. If you lose, you're hosting a playoff game. If you win, you're still going to the next one, which is likely the Rose Bowl. And if you win that, then you're going to, I think, possibly Dallas. And if you win that, you're going to Atlanta. So, yeah, it's a lot of tickets. You're getting on a flight every single time. Yeah. So I think they might not want to go. And Penn State is approximately, depending where you are in the state of Pennsylvania, an 8 to 10 hour drive, which is certainly manageable to get to Indianapolis, but it's a lot to get there.
Yeah, and it's about the same distance from Indianapolis as it is their closest airport, is what I hear.
Yeah, that's where they get on the bus. That's where they take the bus when they need to go, on a big flight.
Statistically, I think these teams are very even, but I think you throw that out in this game because I have not been impressed one time with Penn State's offense at all this year. I mean, they have struggled to put a lot of teams away. They had Ohio State gave them the game and they still blew it. Minnesota should have beaten them. Wisconsin should have beaten them. I mean, they just haven't looked complete on offense, and I think that's what's going to. I think Oregon might kill them. They have 2 first and second round defensive ends, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Sorry.
I am also thinking that I just think Oregon is the better team. I think Oregon is more talented. Penn State still can't really use wide receivers.
Right.
Like Jabbar Muhammad is on the other side. Ohio State's defensive backs definitely leave some to be desired. There's big names and they struggle in big moments. I think Oregon's defensive backs are playing at a better spot right now. I think Oregon's whole offense, they have the offensive line. You got Jordan James, you got Trayshawn Holden, Evan Stewart, Tej Johnson. There's a lot of guys, and Oregon's going to score points. I'm not sure if Penn State can get into a high-scoring match and go shot for shot with them.
Right. They can't.
Tyler Warren is obviously arguably the best tight end in the country.
Yeah.
And is phenomenal, and they use him in a ton of different ways. But is he going to be enough? Are they going to be able to get him the ball creatively enough? Is Penn State going to have to play the style where you try to slow down the game as much and give the ball to Katron Allen and Nick Singleton to try to limit the opposing possessions? I don't think that's what Penn State wants to do. Penn State wants to play their offense, and sometimes it'll be explosive, but sometimes it might be slow. And I think they like to find those explosive plays, but they cannot do it with the wide receivers. They don't have explosive wide receivers.
Yeah, Julian Fleming is their best wide receiver, and he's been just very inconsistent. Tyler Warren's their best wide receiver.
My favorite things this weekend is Penn State fans trying to rub the fact that Julian Fleming is going to the Big Ten championship game. It's like, well, he's actually already been there. So
yeah,
he was there in 2020, and he caught a couple passes. Side note, he made a comment, and Carson Beck made a very similar comment. I want to talk about this for a second.
They don't watch football.
Yeah, that they don't watch football, which I don't fully disagree with, and I kind of understand it from a fact because they live and breathe it all day. Of you're in there, you're watching film, you're in meetings, you're yada yada yada. On Sundays, they might not just want to watch football, and they might just not be some of those guys. Maybe they just want to watch Netflix.
That was not me. I was going to tell you that.
And that's okay. And it's okay to be the guy who does watch it. It's also okay to be the guy who is not like wildly obsessed with your NFL team.
I loved when we had noon games because I could come back and watch the night games.
There's plenty of other guys who are not like that, though. And it's okay. Some guys do it because they're good at it. And some guys do it because they truly love everything.
Yeah. There's a reason I'm talking on a podcast at 10 o'clock at night in an empty room about football.
Facts. Last game here. Let's talk about the ACC championship game. SMU and Clemson will play. SMU is believed to have a spot locked up. We'll see, although the committee said that that's not true, even though it should be. Clemson has a chance to work their way into the playoff here with a win. What does Clemson need to do against SMU?
They've got to get the passing game going. I mean, so the teams that have played Clemson the best this year have stopped the run. And guess what SMU does best defensively? They hold opponents to 2.8 yards per rush. They're fourth in the country in rush defense. Phil Maffa hasn't really been healthy since the Virginia game. He got hurt back in the Virginia game and has been sort of a shell of himself. And despite that, he's still the feature back. And you can tell late in games where he's just not hitting that next gear that he used to hit. So that part stinks. So if Clemson isn't able to establish the run, it's going to be really, really tough. It's going to be really, really tough. But Cade Klubnik just got snubbed from all ACC. Wasn't first team, wasn't second team, wasn't third team, even though he's statistically the second best quarterback in the ACC, third best behind Kyle McCord and Cam Ward. I think he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. I think these wide receivers are wanting to come out and really make a statement. I think this offense really wants to come out and make a statement. They need to play a complete game. They haven't done that yet all year. The best game they've played was against App State, and that was a half, and they got pulled in the second half, so that's why they didn't get to play a complete game that game. But if Clemson wants to be able to beat SMU, they've got to hit them when they get their opportunities. They can't miss the throws. They can't drop passes. When they get these opportunities to make chunk plays, they have to happen because the run game is going to be limited. Defensively, Kevin Jennings doesn't, despite what people think, he can run, yes, but despite what people think, he's not a run-first guy. He wants to throw the football. And the difference between him and Lenora Sellers is about 50 pounds. So I feel a little bit more confident if our guys get a hold of him, he might go down a lot easier than a 250-pound man. So I'm feeling pretty good about this game. But SMU is a really, really good football team. If they can run the football, which I think they will, I think they're going to have a good shot. I think this could end up being a shootout.
Yeah, Kevin Jennings has SMU rolling right now. And, I mean, they know what's on the line. Especially, I think the worst thing for Clemson was being SMU hearing that, like, hey, with a loss, you're not in. Like, you might not be in.
Right.
And because all of a sudden, that turned from, oh, well, it'd be really nice to win to we have to win. Like, we have to win. And I know Clemson has to win as well. But it's a little bit different when you're coming off a loss to your rivalry game and you backdoor your way into the ACC championship game, then you're 11-1 and you've not that Clemson didn't earn it, but SMU truly earned their way in. Right. That makes sense.
They didn't lose one game in the ACC.
Yeah.
Their only loss was to BYU. And another thing too, Clemson was playing for their playoff lives last week. What'd that do?
Yeah, they knew that if they won, that they could potentially have, like, they would probably be ahead of Alabama right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, they would be ahead of Alabama right now. And the problem is you would be a loss and you'd probably still be out. But in that situation, Miami winning would probably be better. But that's a whole other path I don't feel like going down right now. That's a lot of thinking about it. But yeah, the season was on the line and you lost. Season's on the line again. How do you respond?
Right.
We'll see. We've got 1 week left in the season, so it's a perfect time to sign up for Underdog Fantasy. It's the best way to draft your perfect team. It's the best way to make pick'em entries. We've been using it all season long. We did great last week, 3 of 4 on our picks. I went 2 for 2. Just saying. You can sign up today using promo code WALKON to claim your first pick and get your first time deposit up to $1,000. Make sure to visit UnderdogFantasy.com. You You can find them in the App Store. You must be 18 or old to play, and terms will apply. I went 2 for 2 last week. Davis Warren had less than 135 and a half passing yards, only at 62. And yeah, they beat Ohio State with their quarterback throwing for only 62 yards. But the other one, Marcel Reed, had 33 and a half rushing yards, or he had more higher than, and he ended up with 60. So I went 2-0 last week.
Yeah, and I was feeling pretty confident that Marcel Reed would be able to add a little bit of passing yards to get to 218 or 219 yards passing. Passing and rushing combined, but he wasn't able to do that. So that was the one I missed.
Kyle McCord went higher than 325 and a half, though, had 380. That was a big one right there. That was an easy win.
Yeah. That was double win too, because that was the reason they beat Miami.
My 2 this week, I have Nate Frazier going higher than half a touchdown, so I have him scoring. He scored a touchdown in 5 straight games, especially with Trevor Etienne probably out again this weekend. Frazier's going to be the lead running back. If they're going to score points, on the ground, it's going to be through Frazier. I think Frazier finds the end zone. I don't think he has a lot of yards, but I think he scores in the end, gets to the end zone. The other one I got here is Tyler Warren scoring a touchdown. 10 total touchdowns this year. This is a massive game. Biggest game for James Franklin in his career, I would say. I don't think that's unrealistic to say, because if they win, there's a chance they could get the 1 seed. If they win, they're at least getting the 2 seed. I mean, you need to win, so don't overthink it. Give it to your best player.
Yeah. Well, and you look back at the last big game they had. Tyler Warren disappeared. I think Andy Kotelnicki will compensate for that. He'll fix that in this big game.
They used him a bunch against Minnesota, so when the game was on the line there, they gave it to him a bunch. So I think that'll be similar. What 2 you got this week?
I've got Cam Scatterbo higher than 115 and a half rushing yards. Iowa State has the 96th ranked rush defense, and he's gone over this 3 out of 5 times in the past 5 weeks. I think he's going to be able to do it. I think they're going to lean heavily on him in this game, especially with Iowa State having one of the best pass defenses in the country. Cam Scatterbo is going to have to be the straw that stirs the drink. And then Haj Malik Williams, I've got him higher than 253 and a half pass and rushing yards combined. He's done this in 8 of his 9 starts this year. And last time they played Boise State, he passed for 179 and ran for 105. So I'm feeling pretty confident in this.
All right, let's get into our walk-on weekly 10. You have a 7-game lead here. So I'm about to fade you the whole way, because unless there's one that I really like that you're also taking, I am going to fade and hope that you miss on a ton of them. All right, first one here. We've got Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State playing in the conference. Is this Conference USA? This is Conference.
Yeah, Conference USA.
I always forget what the Conference USA. Jacksonville State is a 3.5 point favorite here.
I really want to go with the Hilltoppers, but I've got some former teammates that are coaching on Jacksonville State. So give me Jacksonville State minus 3.5.
Tyson Helton just wins games. I'm going to take Western Kentucky to cover the spread at 3.5.
You're probably going to do that anyway.
I was going to take Western Kentucky on that one for sure, though. We've got UNLV is a 4-point favorite, or my bad. UNLV is a 4-point underdog against Boise State this weekend in the Mountain West.
Boise State has gotten the job done week in, week out, every single week, except for against Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, which that was a 1-score game. UNLV took them down to the wire. Playing the team and beating the team twice is very, very difficult to do. If Boise State wins, I think it's a really close game, but I think UNLV ruins the Broncos season this weekend, and I think UNLV wins this game. Give me UNLV +4.
Boise State knows what's on the line. Ashton Jeanty's got a chance to make a Heisman statement here. What better way to do it than in the Mountain West Championship game? Boise State wins this game. They cover their 4 points, and they get their first round bye. Next one here, we got the American Athletic Conference. Tulane is a 5-point favorite against Army this weekend.
Tulane Tulane just lost to Memphis in a heartbreaker. I mean, Memphis just had their way with them and pretty much ruined any chance of this game being a potential playoff game. Army has been decent, but they faced their first best team that they've faced all year against Notre Dame. They got boat raced. I think Tulane beats them. I think Tulane beats them by double digits. I'm going Green Wave -5.
I'm going to agree on this one. I've got to agree somewhere. I can't take all opposite ones with you. Army just, when they played UTSA last week, they only won by 5. UTSA is just okay. Tulane has a pretty solid team. I think John Sumrall wins this. I think that would make 3 straight conference championships for him, or at least this is his 3rd straight appearance in a conference championship game. Previous to at Troy, but this is his 3rd straight with Tulane. I think Tulane wins this game. I think they win it pretty easy. Iowa State is a 2-point underdog against Arizona State this weekend. Do you like the Cyclones? Do you like the Sun Devils?
Arizona State is hotter than your middle school crush. They can't be stopped. Jordan Tyson is a freak at wideout. Cam Scatterbo is everyone's favorite running back. Sam Levitt is not a freshman.
But who was your walk-on team?
But who was my walk-on team? Iowa State. Give me Iowa State. Give me Rocco Becht, the best name in college football. Give me Jalen Noel. Give me Abu Sama. Give me Matt Campbell Cyclones.
Give me Kenny Dillingham, the guy with plenty of coaching experience. Cam Scatterbo has been on fire. This is going to be a really fun game, but I only need Arizona State by 2. Only needing them by 2 is huge. I don't think they win big. I think they win by just enough, though. The MAC, Ohio and Miami, Ohio are going to play, and Miami, Ohio is a 2.5-point favorite in this game.
Give me Ohio. I've watched more of them this year. Tuesday night action. I've enjoyed watching them play. Curtis Rourke went there. My quarterback from Indiana. They've been doubted all year long. This is just another game of being doubted. They just know how to handle adversity. Give me Ohio. Give me the Bobcats, baby.
I really wanted to take Ohio because I've seen them twice in person this year, but I'm going to take Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio has won 7 in a row. Just so you know, they beat Northern Illinois by 11. They beat Bowling Green by 16. They've looked great the last couple of weeks. So give me Miami of Ohio to win this game. Next one here. We've got Georgia and Texas. Georgia is a 2.5-point underdog against Texas.
Georgia beat Texas pretty good last time, and that was very similarly. Quinn Ewers was coming off of an oblique injury, was able to play against Georgia. Now Quinn Ewers is coming off of an ankle injury, and he's getting ready to play against Georgia. He looked kind of mobile, but I think the difference between this weekend and last time they played is Arch Manning's development and what they're doing with him in the offense. I think the wheels fall off in Georgia. I think Texas whoops them.
I've got to pick 2 games to be different on here, or 2 games that I can pick the same. And I don't know if I'm going to pick here, or I know the other one you're also going to pick as well. So we'll take Georgia to cover in this one, just because I think Georgia's playmakers can keep it close long enough. 2.5 points is not a lot. I would love this more if it was 3.5, but we'll take Georgia here. We've talked about how they haven't played a complete game. If they play a complete game, I think they can win this game.
If they play a complete game, Texas is doomed.
That is a fact. Problem is, Georgia has not played a complete game at all.
And let's make sure that the Georgia wide receivers replace their ping pong paddles for hands for actual football gloves. Maybe that'll help them catch some balls.
Marshall is a 5.5-point underdog against Louisiana this weekend in the Sun Belt Championship.
There was a great movie that came out about Marshall, about the 1980 team. We Are Marshall.
I don't know if I'd call it a great movie.
Great flick, great cinema. They did a great job capturing the feelings and the raw emotion of that. But I had a neighbor that played at Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. Nope, that's Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah, there's 2 Louisiana programs.
Yeah, that's who's playing. Louisiana Lafayette, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So
Monroe is the Warhawks.
My Raging Cajuns. Okay, I'm going with the Raging Cajuns.
Cool, because I'm going to go with Marshall because they played Ohio State this year. That's about it. I've got no other reason other than the fact they played Ohio State and they looked pretty good for a couple.
And they scored first.
Yeah, they scored first. This is the one I think we're going to be in the same one. Penn State and Oregon. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I think Oregon wins this by double digits. Penn State has a chance. They have a recipe. I just don't think it works.
Yeah, Penn State needs to get pressure on Dylan Gabriel. Abdul Carter needs a big day. And they've got to find a way to move the ball consistently. Right. And you're going to have to use other guys other than Tyler Warren. Last one here. Clemson is a 2.5-point underdog against SMU this weekend.
Cade, they're doubting you. They're doubting you again. They didn't make you all ACC honors, even though you're ahead of every other quarterback except for Cam Ward and the Heisman finalist odds. Statistically, you're one of the best quarterbacks in the country, not let alone the ACC. They're doubting you, Cade. We need a big one out of you in Charlotte. We need a big one. Let's go Clemson minus 2.5. I think they get it done.
Clemson needed to get it done last weekend and didn't. I don't think they get it done this weekend either. Pressure against the wall. It's just not going to fit. I'm going to take SMU. Kevin Jennings, I think they get it done. I think they win their first ACC championship when the ACC didn't even want them.
Now, Jake.
Funny part is SMU only getting this TV money even if they win.
You did get yelled at by Eric McLean last time you did this. He did say on site. My wife said, "What does on site mean?" And I was like, that means next time he sees Jake, it would be a fight. There would be a fight. So are you willing to fight Eric McLean?
I won't last more than 15 seconds in a fight with him. He played offensive line. Do I look like I ever could have played offensive line?
If you dreamed hard and worked hard.
I could have played offensive line in Pee Wee.
Listen here, Jake. My wife, and I actually just put this tweet out there not too long ago, but my wife had a really good observation. I was talking about when Eric McLean sat with us for the ACC preview, and he talked about how he was sitting in the room with a bunch of billionaires when they were doing the ACC announcement, welcome party or whatever. And then I started to tell her about the Pony Express and how they used to be really good way back in the 80s, and they got the death penalty, so she thought it was really cool. And then she goes, "Wait, when did they start being good again?" And I was like, "Oh, about 2021." She goes, "Do you think that has to do with NIL?" And I was like, "Wow, that's a profound thought." So shout out to Mama Moose, Mrs. Moose, for the profound college football thought. So we'll leave you with that. What does the NIL environment do to help SMU get to where they are now? Because they've started
every
stringing
player
out really
gets a
good
gas
wins.
station.
They do. We'll see. I mean, again, I tweeted that, and I think some people thought I was bashing Rhett Lashley or not giving him enough flowers. I think Rhett Lashley is doing a phenomenal job. He's using NIL appropriately, and he's recruiting very, very well, and he's obviously coaching very, very well. So this is not Rhett Lashley slander. This is not SMU slander. This is a positive thing, that you're able to use your resources in a positive way to build your program to be 11-1 and playing in the ACC championship in their first year in a Power 4 program. So anyway, that aside, I just want to say that.
Well, that does it for another episode of the Walk on Red Shirts podcast. We really appreciate everybody joining for this whole season. We'll be back again next week because then we'll be able to look at the college football playoff, start making predictions, be able to recap National Signing Day, and start looking at all these bowl matchups. Because sure enough, we might slow down here a little bit as we get into the holidays, but there's still plenty of stuff coming up. We still have college football for almost 2 more months, if we're being honest. Yeah, your team might be out of it if, you're a Florida State fan. Sorry.
There's still teams to watch, though.
There's still plenty of other games to watch, so plenty of things to go. So we'll be around for all of it. make sure to follow along. Make sure to follow us on social media. Follow us on X, Twitter, YouTube, Threads, Facebook, whatever other social media you want to use. We're definitely on it. Make sure to give us a follow. Make sure to follow Moose at Walk On Moose on Twitter, and subscribe to the podcast. Make sure to give us a rate. We'd love if you gave us your feedback. That way we can know what we can do for next year.
Yeah.
Give us feedback. Let us know. Let us know in 2025 what you want to hear more of.
We welcome bad feedback. Bring it on.
100% we do. With that being said, we'll see everybody again next week.